तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यामभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवाञ्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथन्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश नमा ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निधि नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं भङ्गं लङ्घायते गिरियत्कृपातमं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीगुरु. So we'll continue from Ishopanishad, text number 6 or mantra 6. Yastu sarvani bhutanya atmanya evan anupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate. So this verse is very important. Here, the qualities of a person who never hates anyone, who is not having any kind of a envy towards any living entity. And why he is not having, that is explained here very nicely. He who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. So the person will not hate anyone or any being because he systematically sees everything in relation to Supreme Personality of a God. He sees everyone as a part and parcel of the Lord. And he sees Lord in everyone's heart. See, this wonderful philosophy, if it is followed by the United Nations, and if they try to apply this in each and every country, then there will be no fights, There will be real peace in the human society. This is the description of a Mahabhagavat, the great personality who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Personality of a Godhead. The Supreme Lord's presence is realized in 3 stages. See, again, going back, this verse explains the quality of a person who never hates anyone. And Prabhupada says that person is Mahabhagavat. Such symptoms of Mahabhagavat or qualities of Mahabhagavat has explained here. He who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, and who sees all living entities as his parts and parcel, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. The Supreme Lord's presence is realized in 3 stages. The Kanakshadikari is in the lowest stage of realization. He goes to place of worship such as a temple, church, or mosque according to his religious faith and worships there according to the scriptural injunctions. Devotees in this stage consider the Lord to be present at the place of worship and nowhere else. They cannot ascertain who is in what position in devotional service, nor can they tell who has realized the Supreme Lord. Such a devotees follow the routine formulas and sometimes quarrel among themselves, considering one type of devotion better than another. These Kanishta Adhikaris are actually materialistic devotees who are simply trying to transcend the material boundary to reach the spiritual plane. So Prabhupada is explaining here about the three different stages of consciousness of sadhakas. The one is Kanishta Adhikari, who has a faith in God. He goes to temple to worship there because he believes that Lord resides in temple only, nowhere else. And then here he says that he follows the particular scripture that is meant for him according to the location and place. That's why he says that they go to church, they go to mosque, or they go to temple and try to worship their lordship according to their scriptures. And the another quality of this particular person that he is not able to find out who is where in his devotional service, because he himself in the lower stage of that adhikara, and he tried to transcend the material boundary to reach the spiritual plane. And Prabhupada says he is actually a materialistic person because still he has that bodily concept of life on which he performs different sort of activities, different ways of worshiping the God. So further Prabhupada says, those who have attended the second stage of realization are called Madhyama Adhikaris. These devotees observe the distinction between four categories, being the Supreme Lord, second, the devotees of the Lord, third, the innocent who have a no knowledge of the Lord, and fourth, atheists who have no faith in the God and hate those in devotional service. So the atheists who have no faith in the Lord and hate those in devotional service. The Madhyamadhikari behaves differently toward these four classes of men. He adores the Lord, considering him the object of love. He makes friends with those who are in devotional service. He tries to awaken the dormant love of God in the hearts of the innocent. And he avoids the atheist who deride the very name of the Lord. So here the qualities of Madhyamadhikaris has explained. So what he does, he accepts the supreme personality of a Godhead as a supreme. Second, he accepts the devotees of the Lord who worship their Lordship. Third, he knows who are innocent, who does not have a knowledge. And fourth, he tries to keep distance from the atheist because they are non-believer and they hate to those who worship the devotional service of the Lord. So Madhyamadhikaris, he creates this distinction. And according to that, he reciprocates with the different personalities. And above this Madhyamadhikari is the Uttamadhikari, whose qualities are explained in this particular verse, who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord. He sees everything. Sarvatra vasati iti vasudeva. He sees the Lord who resides in each and everything. That's why he relates everything to the Lord. The Kanishta Adhikari, he relates everything to himself because he is on the bodily platform, and according to that, he makes distinction. But Uttam Adhikari, he relates everything with the Lord rather than relating with himself. And that's why he never discriminates between theist and atheist. For him, all they come from the Lord only. They are the part and parcels of their Lordship. He knows that there is no essential difference between a vastly learned Brahmana and a dog in the street because both of them are part and parcels of the Lord. Although they are encaged in a different bodies on account of different qualities of their activities in their previous lives, he sees that Brahmana, particles of the Supreme Lord, has not misused his little independence given him by the Lord, and that the dog particle has misused his independence and is therefore being punished by the laws of nature by being encaged in the form of a dog. Not considering the respective actions of a Brahmana and the dog, the Uttamadhikari tries to do good to both. Such a learned devotee is not misled by material bodies but is attracted by the spiritual spark within them. So, here, clear distinction between the two different categories of Kanishta and Madhyama, how they are different from Uttamadhikari, we can make it out clearly. Because the qualities of Uttamadhikari, he never distinguishes anything. Madhyamadhikari, he distinguishes things. And Kanishta Adhikari does not have that much knowledge. So whatever he has, according to that, he worships, tries to worship the Lordship. Those who imitate an Uttamadhikari by flaunting a sense of oneness or fellowship, but who behave on the bodily platform are actually false philanthropists. The conception of universal brotherhood must be learned from the Uttamadhikari and not from the foolish person who does not properly understand the individual soul or the Supreme Lord's super soul expansion who dwells everywhere. See, there are some spiritualists, they try to put themselves on the Uttamadhikari level without understanding that their lordship is supreme and they behave on the bodily platform of a life, and that's why they try to appease particular group of people, and they become philanthropists for that. They do some philanthropical activities to pacify those particular living entities, and they try to put this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam conception, but they really don't understand that Lord is different from the living entities. They try to mix up their lordship and they try to equalize their lordship and jiva on the same platform.
Manav Seva is Madhav Seva. Something like that.
That's what they say. Nara seva is Narayan seva. So
Mm.
that sort of a thing, Prabhupada says, is based on the bodily conception of life. It is clearly mentioned in this sixth mantra that one should observe or systematically see. This means that one must follow the previous acharyas, the perfected teachers. Anupashyati is the exact Sanskrit word used in this connection. Anu means to follow, and pashyati means to observe. Thus, the word anupashyati means that one should not see things as he does, with the naked eyes but should follow the previous acharyas. Due to material defects, the naked eye cannot see anything properly. One cannot see properly unless one has heard from a superior source, and the highest source is the Vedic wisdom, which is spoken by the Lord Himself. Vedic truths are coming in a disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, from Vyasa to many of his disciples. Formerly, there was no need to record the message of the Vedas because people in early ages were more intelligent and had a sharper memories. They could follow the instructions simply by hearing once from the mouth of a bona fide spiritual master. So Prabhupada clearly explains here about how to understand this knowledge, This knowledge of Vedas should be or must be accepted from the authorities. Because based on our own senses, it's not possible for us to have proper spiritual knowledge. So it's better to get that knowledge from experienced people. And the process of that is called as a anupashyati, by following the observations of the people who have experience about that. So that will gives us the real knowledge. Then further Prabhupada says, at the present, there are many commentaries on the revealed scriptures, but most of them are not in the line of a disciplic succession, coming from Srila Vedavyas, who originally compiled the Vedic wisdom. The final, most perfect and sublime work by Srila Vedavyas is Srimad Bhagavatam, which is natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. There is also Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by the Lord Himself and recorded by Vedavyas. There are the most important revealed scriptures, and any commentary that contradicts the principles of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is unauthorized. There is a complete agreement among the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutras, Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. And no one should try to reach any conclusion about the Vedas without receiving instruction from members of a Vyasadeva disciplic succession who believe in this personality of a Godhead and his diverse energies as they are explained in Sri Ishopanishada. So Prabhupada gives more emphasis on disciplic succession here because that's the proper way of accepting knowledge which is revealed by one person to another person in his heart. That's the proper way. Because in the beginning, this knowledge was revealed by their lordship in the heart of Brahma. Tene Brahmarudha Adikavai. In the heart of Brahma, this knowledge got revealed. So same way with the disciplic succession, this knowledge can come. And by your own endeavor, you can't learn this knowledge actually. And we have many examples for that in ancient era and present era also. Like in ancient era, the whole story of Srimad Bhagavatam starts with this particular story of Arvadhamya Rishi and his three disciples. So one of them was Varuni. He got the knowledge just by pleasing his spiritual master. All the Vedas, they entered in his body, and he got those knowledge just by pleasing his spiritual master. And that's what Lord says in Bhagavad Gita also. that tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. This knowledge can be obtained by serving the tattvadarshi who has seen the truth. So you can get this knowledge only through disciplic succession. So in text 6, where Ishopanishada explains about the qualities of Uttamadikari. Any question, any doubt, any query, whatever we have discussed about?
No,
We go
Prabhuji.
further?
Yeah.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes. No, Prabhuji, no doubts. Good.
Okay. The next verse. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhudavai vijanataha tatra ko moha ko shoka ekatvam anupashyati. Yasmin sarvani bhutanya आत्मैव अभुद विजानतः तत्र को मोह कः वेद क शोक एकत्वम अनुपश्यतः. One who has always sees all living entities as spiritual parts, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? Ekatvam anupashyati. So here this particular word which has used, ekatvam anupashyati, oneness in quality, who sees the oneness in quality with the Lord. For that person, there is a no shoka, there is a no moha. So actually, these two things are there which makes us suffer in this material world. Shoka and moha. In the purport, Prabhupada explains, except for the Madhyamadikari and Uttamadikari discussed above, no one can correctly see the spiritual position of a living being. The living entities are qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, just as a spark of a fire are qualitatively one with the fire. Yet, the spark are not the fire as far as quantity is concerned. For the quantity of heat and light present in the spark is not equal to that in the fire. The Mahabhagavad, the great devotee, sees oneness in the sense that he sees everything as the energy of the Supreme Lord. Since there is no difference between the energy and energetic, there is the sense of oneness. Although from the analytical point of view, heat and light are different from fire, there is no meaning to the word fire without heat and light. In synthesis, therefore, heat, light, and fire are the same. See how wonderfully giving analogy Prabhupada has explained what sort of a oneness is there between Jiva and their Lordship. Not like a Mayavadi's that Danda Dharana Matrena Naro Narayana Bhavet. If someone takes sannyas, he can become Narayana. Or just by chanting Soham, 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 you can become that one, that Parabrahma. No. He clearly distinguishes that fire does not have existence without light and heat. Fire means light and heat is there. Then there is an existence for the fire. In that way, light, heat, and fire both are same. There is a oneness. But qualitatively, They are one, but quantitatively they are different. So one has to understand this. So further, Prabhupada says, in this mantra, the words ekatvam anupashyatah indicates that one should see the unity of all living entities from the viewpoint of the revealed scriptures. The individual sparks of the Supreme Whole, the Lord, possess almost 80% of the knowledge of known qualities of the whole, but they are not quantitatively equal to the Supreme Lord. These qualities are present in a minute quantity. For the living entity is but a minute part and parcels of the Supreme Whole. To use another example, the quantity of a salt present in a drop of seawater is never comparable to the quantity of salt present in the complete ocean. But the salt present in the drop is qualitatively equal in a chemical composition to all this salt present in the ocean. If the individual living entity being were equal to the Supreme Lord, both qualitatively and quantitatively, there would be no question of his being under the influence of the material energy. In the previous mantra, it is already been discussed that no living being, not even the powerful demigods, can surpass the Supreme Being in any respect. Therefore, ekatvam does not mean that a living being is equal in all respect to the Supreme Lord. It does not. However, indicate that in a broader sense, there is a one interest, just as in a family, the interest of all members is one, or in a nation, the national interest is one, although there are many different individual citizens. Since the living entities are all members of the same supreme family, their interests and that of the supreme being are not different. Every living being is the son of supreme being, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text number 5 and 6. All living creatures throughout the universe, including birds, reptiles, ants, aquatics, trees, and so on, are emanations of the material potencies of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all of them belong to the family of the Supreme Being. There is no clash of interest. So it's very simple to understand. But due to the ignorance, we never think and contemplate on these particular points. Because this seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is called as a Jnana Vijnana Yoga, where, or the knowledge about the absolute truth, where Lord explains about the different energies of the Lord. He says that apareyam itastwanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabhavo yayedam dharyate jagat. O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior nature of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Etad yonini bhutani sarvani iti upadharaya aham krishnasya jagatah prabhava pralayastata. All created beings have their source in these two natures of all that in material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin of this dissolution. So, whatever spiritual or material you see or think about, all that is nothing but the manifestation of the Supreme Personality's potencies. So, Shakti and Shaktiman, the power and the potency and the person who has that, both are non different from each other. So, in that way, you have to see the Ekatva. And if someone does not understand that, then he will create distinctions in each and everything. Only the Uttamadhikari, Mahabhagavata, he has that ekatvam in his vision. Why? Because he sees all the living beings, all the creation is equal to their lordship, because that comes from their lordship. Then further Prabhupada says the spiritual entities are meant for enjoyment, as stated in a Vedanta Sutra, Anandamayo Abhyasa. By nature and constitution, every living being, including the Supreme Lord, and each of his part and parcel, is meant for eternal enjoyment. The living beings who are engaged in the material turbulences are constantly seeking enjoyment, but they are seeking it on the wrong platform. Apart from the material platform is the spiritual platform, where the Supreme Being enjoys himself with his innumerable associates. On that platform, there is no trace of material qualities, and therefore that platform is called Nirguna, or the Nirguna platform. There is never a clash over the object of enjoyment. Here in the material world, there is always a clash between different individual beings, because here the proper center of enjoyment is missed. The real center of enjoyment is Supreme Lord, who is the center of the sublime and spiritual rasa dance. We are all meant to enjoy him and enjoy life with one transcendental interest and without any clash. That is the highest platform of a spiritual interest. And as soon as one realizes this perfect form of oneness, there can be no question of illusion, moha, or lamentation. That is shoka. So, person who is having this knowledge will get free from shoka and moha. Because we don't have knowledge, which puts us into illusion, and because of that illusion, we create ourselves sufferings. So, one who knows about the real source of happiness and tries to obtain that, that will free him from moha and shoka. Then further Prabhupada says that a godless civilization arises from illusion, and the result of such a civilization is lamentation. A godless civilization, such as that sponsored by the modern politicians, is always full of anxieties because it may be crushed at any moment. That is the law of nature, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text number 14. Daivi Esha Gunamai Mama Maya Dhrittaya Mam Yeva Ye Prapadyante Maya Mitan Tarantite. None but those who surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord can surpass the stringent laws of nature. Thus, if we wish to get rid of the sports of illusion and anxiety and create unity of the all diverse interests, we must bring God into all our activities. So unless and until we make the center of our life their lordship, it's not possible to attain real peace and happiness. The result of our activities must be used to serve the interests of the Lord and not for any other purpose. Only by serving the Lord's interest can we perceive the Atma Bhuta interest mentioned herein. The Atma Bhuta interest mentioned in a mantra and the Brahma Bhuta interest mentioned in Srimad Bhagavad Gita are one and the same. The Supreme Atma or soul is the Lord Himself, and the minute Atma is the living entity. The Supreme Atma or a Paramatma alone maintains all the individual minute beings, for the Supreme Lord wants to derive pleasure out of their affection. The Father extends himself through his children and maintains them in order to derive pleasure. If the children obey the Father's will, family affairs will run smoothly, with one interest and a pleasing atmosphere. The same situation is transcendently arranged in the absolute family of the Parabrahman, the Supreme Spirit. The Parabrahman is as much a person as the individual entities. Neither the Lord nor the living entities are impersonal. Such a transcendental personalities are full of transcendental bliss, knowledge, and life eternal. That is the real position of a spiritual existence. And as soon as one is fully cognizant of this transcendental position, he at once surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Being, Sri Krishna. But such a Mahatma or a great soul is a very rarely seen because such a transcendental realization is achieved only after many, many births. Once it is attained, however, there is no longer any illusion or lamentation. There are no miseries of material existence, and there are no birth and death, which are all experienced in our present life. That is the information we get from this mantra of Ishopanishada. So, the real source of our happiness is connecting ourselves with the Supreme Lord. Because, as explained in the Vedanta Sutra, the Anandamaya Abhyasa, the living entity is being part and parcel of the Lord, and Lord is the Sachidananda who is eternally happy. We also try to become happy, but we try to become happy in the wrong place by giving up the association of Lord. We try to enjoy in this material world and we try to seek happiness, but that's not the way to be happy. One can become happy when one gets out of shoka and moha, from illusion and lamentation. And how one can get that? By acquiring this knowledge from the spiritual master. Does that make sense? So we will stop here and we'll continue with the next verse, text number 8, in our next session. Okay?
Okay, Prabhu. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.